Madam Chair. We have Commissioner Willie joining us, and we are live on YouTube for you.
Wonderful. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, May 18th, 2021 Washington County Board of Commissioners work session. This is Chair Catherine Harrington, and with me this morning is Commissioner Pam Treese, Commissioner Nafisa Fye, and Commissioner Jerry Willie. Commissioner Roy Rogers is excused. Our work session agenda was modified on Monday, and what had been item 3, budget discussion, has been removed. So we have the Enhanced Sheriff Patrol District topic before our business meeting at 10 o'clock. And then when we reconvene at 1 o'clock, we'll be going over equity in contracting. I'll be departing the meeting in whatever state it is in order to join the team in presenting the Washington County Supportive Housing Services Local Implementation Plan to the Metro Council. There was a lot of preparation work in advance going to the Metro Council today. So I'm really looking forward to that and sharing with them all of the great work that our team has done, conferring with us as well, and moving forward. So I'll come back to my own board communications a little bit later. Of the three of you, who would like to kick us off with board communications? Go ahead, Commissioner Treese.
Well, this is easy this week for me because I'm afraid I don't have anything to report. So aside from our budget meetings and the work that's going on there. So with that, I know that I've got a community action meeting tomorrow night, but other than that, it's been mostly budget stuff. So thank you.
Yeah, and prior to our first budget meeting on Thursday night, I know I had my nose continued cramming into the budget book. So great set of meetings though. Who's next?
I'll go next. Good morning, everyone. I agree with you, Commissioner Treese. Last week, it seems like we're in the midst of budget process and reading a lot. But last week, one of the meetings that I had was with Work Systems Inc. Executive Director Andrew to learn more about their critical work as the region's workforce board. And we talked about programming that's critical to expanding workforce pipeline careers in construction, healthcare, and other hands-on fields. And I learned a lot about our Washington County, the 2 workforce facilities. So that was a really great meeting and great introduction. And then last week we had our Equity Leadership Council Q2 meeting. That was really fantastic and very well attended. And I'm really proud of the work that Tricia Tillman and her staff are doing to really ground us into equity and bring us along. And they have really fantastic exercises. And one of the things I appreciated that Latricia brought on was, our meetings are 4 hours long, and every 20, I think she can explain it better, but every 20 minutes you look away from the screen and stare something else for 20 seconds. And I thought that was really good, to sort of take your eyes off the screen and relax and just look something else. And then last week I did a town hall on vaccine, a virtual town hall with Hillsborough Youth Advisory Council. They had really great questions. My role was just to sort of share with what Washington County is doing. We shared a lot of information with them, but just to say a few things that we're doing. And, our staff are, Marnie and her staff, Tricia, are really doing great work and gave me a lot of great talking points and a lot of good information to share. But that town hall was really well done because the state and all the key players were there, and as well as Washington County, and people really had like good questions. How do we build trust, and what are we doing to vaccinate the community, and then really hardcore questions like, which vaccine is more safer than the other. So that was very well engaging and informative. And then the other thing, this week I have my first time attending JPAC, and there's quite a bit of stuff on, especially on the consent agenda, but more importantly, there's a JPAC
programs and policies that will help us move forward. So do any of you have any questions, or at least I'm totally thumbs up as is the way it is? Commissioner Treese as well. Commissioner Willie, any thoughts?
I haven't had a chance. I've read it, but I haven't had a chance to really digest it, again, for all the reasons that everybody else has been busy. So I will commit to giving you the thumbs up later this afternoon. I see that we're probably going to have a shorter afternoon work session. So that's when I'd planned on going back and catching up on that particular email. So I will certainly do that.
Okay. Well, Commissioner Fye, you've got a good solid 3 thumbs up at this point, and hopefully we'll have a 4th joining us very shortly. And I did see Commissioner Rogers' comments over email.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Good
and
job.
That's all for me. Thank you.
Great.
Well, did I just lose you?
No, you're up. We can see you.
Oh, good, because the whole screen went black except for I could see my picture down there, and that's all I could see. Nafisa, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to share Chris. And so she can be your new best friend, but we all really appreciate and enjoy Chris's insight and everything else. So sharing is good. And so you're going to have to learn to do that with Chris. So just a real quick update on CARES Northwest. Kevin Dowling, who was the executive director, has decided to move to another position. And in the interim, Jenny Gilmore Robinson is the interim executive director. Kevin still had about 6 more months on the board as the Public Safety Coordinating Council. And so we are just going to appoint Jenny Gilmore Robinson as kind of his stand-in for the next 6 months. And then we will go out and do a full recruitment, just like any other board position coming at the end of the year. We also had our first ARPA meeting, and I'm sure, Catherine, I'll leave that up to you to update that, but that was a great meeting, setting the foundation and certainly the structure of our values and certainly our principles and vision for what it is that we want to see with that money for. So I'll kick that over to you and you can give more details there. I met with Jake Bailey, some faith-based communities folks last week. I think each one of you may have had an opportunity. I thought they had met with others. It was a good time to talk about how we can work with our faith communities, and certainly I congratulated them for their commitment to the homeless community and all the things that they have done, and we will just continue to I guess be committed to work together and come up with new ideas and how we can help that community and others. They were, of course, concerned also about our mental health community. And so it was a good conversation. We're going to continue having those. COPAC was last week. COPAC and Northwest Act, they go back to back on a Thursday. And so COPAC's conversation that was most pertinent, I think, was probably they were reaching out to us, asking us how we had handled the CARES dollars when it came through last week, what some of our focus and priorities were. And so I was able to communicate to them the business sector side of things, focusing on minority businesses and those things. Certainly the coast has a significant number of small and minority-owned businesses. And so they were very interested in our focus on work systems and certainly technical training. So that was a good conversation. Moved into Northwest Act. And they had their ODOT representative has moved into a different position whose primary focus is to meet the criteria for, I can't remember, like 7,000 ADA ramps have to be modified statewide, and they have a very short deadline to do that. And then I heard that we are also working hard on getting our sidewalks and curb lines modified for ADA last night in our budget meeting too. So I just thought that was pretty interesting that we're both focused on getting that project taken care of. So again, Northwest Act continues to be just a good discussion about the transportation priorities for primarily our coastal and Columbia County communities. So that's always good to hear from them. And then one other thing is tomorrow night is the Project Turnkey community meeting. This is a community outreach for the Econo Lodge project that we have got, approved here. And so I don't know, Chair, if you're joining us. I saw you on the invite list, but I didn't know if you were going to do that. So yeah, it should be a good conversation. I'm looking forward to that. And it'll be another opportunity for us to listen and hear what that minority small business community is thinking about in that part of Hillsborough. So that's all I got.
We'll make sure that Julie McLeod gets you the agenda for tomorrow night. So great. Well, I mentioned the Metro Council work session this afternoon. Last Thursday, I participated as the District 8 rep in the AOC membership meeting, and there is a new program for commissioners interning, so to speak, with other counties. So that will be announced in the coming weeks. I met with the Washington County school superintendents yesterday, as well as Tricia and Adrian from the public health team. As always, our public health and just the entire Health and Human Services Department continues to work very collaboratively with all parties in Washington County to try and get as many people vaccinated as fast as possible. And that includes the latest information on, well, first getting our youth 16 and older vaccinated, but now programs for ages down to 12 years of age. So some exciting stuff going on there. Mostly it's a lot of planning at the moment, but making sure that we capture all the kids and their families to get vaccinated. Beyond that, as Commissioner Willie mentioned, the work group for ARPA has had a first meeting. We met with staff, and I'll leave the rest of it to Ms. Angie to speak to next steps there. So just an exciting time going through our budget meetings. So good stuff, good stuff. Ms. Angie, welcome.
Thank you. Technology is really important, isn't it?
Yep.
Glad to be connected and glad to be here with you all today. Clerk Moss, if you could promote Marnie, Kyle. So actually, while Clerk Moss is promoting Marnie, and let me actually pick up the thread on ARPA. We did have a really good first meeting of the steering committee and starting to talk about the values and principles of the ARPA distribution and thinking about distribution in a few tiers. We know that the first tier of funding is continued response to the COVID virus. And so that includes ensuring that our HHS, and just on cue, Marnie pops up on the screen, our HHS response activities are in place. We are confident in the future we will be seeing other sources of ARPA funds coming directly through the state to offset those dollars, but those dollars need to be the first dollars out, and we don't know what that looks like. So part of the strategy as we move forward is clear, transparent communication, both, of course, with the board and also our community partners. I've had great conversations with our city managers and our special service district managers, and I think there's a clear understanding that public health needs to continue to be our priority. In addition to that, the other area of focus in the first tier that we're examining is continuation of the business recovery centers. Of course, the focus of business recovery centers is going to shift. Initially, it was on PPE and distribution of PPE, but our response needs are changing. And so Matt Craigie, our economic development manager, is working very closely with the BRCs as well as the economic development managers of our cities and also our CBOs. So more information will come. We have the next steering committee this Friday, and then we'll be discussing next steps. Chair?
Well, I was just wondering, I'd forgotten about the meeting this Friday. But, the end of June is but 4+ weeks away. And as I understand it, we've got the BRCs funded through the end of June, though I may be wrong about that date. And I was wondering, do you need support or direction from us in order to extend that out, at least through the end of the year, while we, the board, continue to work with staff on the full framework for ARPA?
As we're still currently operating under the emergency declaration, we've been able to, as staff, under my direction, extend both our HHS contracts and also our BRCs. This is really important so that we have continuity of service in both areas. So we've extended them, and so really just appreciate the board's continued support for the emergency declaration so that we can be flexible and nimble. Okay. So then I want to transition into just vaccines and COVID. So from a workforce standpoint, we have 0 positive cases and 0 close contact quarantine. So I actually cheered when I received that latest update from HR. That's really great news. On a personal level, I'm very proud to say I received my 2nd vaccination this weekend. So please get vaccinated. And with that, Marnie, can you just provide a brief update just on masks and vaccinations?
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Angie and Chair Harrington and board. So just a quick update. Unfortunately, we were barely below the 65%. Washington County, as of yesterday afternoon, was at 64.1%. And so we have a little bit more work to do. We continue to offer community-based vaccine clinics, really opening up the walk-in clinics and helping get people to the pharmacies and all of the sites where vaccines are available. Only 2 counties in Oregon met the 65% mark, and that was Hood River and Benton. But we're very close. So we're very hopeful that if, as Ms. Angie said, if people get their vaccine, we will meet that mark next week. So that's where we are with vaccines. And as a reminder, if we meet that 65% mark, and because we have completed the equity plan and submitted that to OHA, we would then be eligible to move into low risk category. So that's the goal, is to get there as soon as possible, but to get there safely, and we need people to get vaccinated to do that. And I think Commissioner Willie had his hand up.
Yeah, I just was asking maybe for a perspective, Marnie. I thought I heard you give us a statistic. When we think of the population of Washington County is 600 and some thousand people, so we think okay, we have to have 65% of 607,000. That really isn't true. It's and you tossed out a different number for
Eligible.
vaccine eligible. And so, and then I'm trying to obviously do the math for 0.9%. How many more people do we need to get vaccinated? So trying to do a little math here because that's the way I process.
Right. So, and I actually didn't look at that number today. Last week it was around 15,000 people that we still needed. So, it's somewhere south of that would help us to get to that 65%. But when we use that statistic, we're talking about eligible, and actually at this point we're talking about 16 and older, because they didn't incorporate the 12 to 15-year-olds in that metric. So when we look at the population, we're looking at 16 and older to meet that 65%. And then the only other thing that I wanted to mention is that I'm sure you've all heard loud and clear from CDC that they are saying that if you're fully vaccinated, meaning you've had 2 doses, if it's Moderna or Pfizer, or 1 dose plus the 2 weeks, post second dose or post your dose, if you're using the Johnson & Johnson, that you do not need to wear a mask in most situations, either indoors or outdoors. But I think it's important to know that in Oregon, a couple things. One is we have not received guidance from OHA, and so we don't really have very specific information about when you still need to wear a mask and when you don't. And the other is that OSHA still requires a mask worn at work sites. And so that's why you're not seeing a lot of change very quickly in local businesses, including here at the county. We're still requiring that our employees and visitors wear a mask until we're able to get more specific guidance to make sure that we're keeping our workforce and our visitors safe. Yes, Chair Harrington.
So I have a question. In seeing the OHA emails day after day after day, it's really wonderful to see that fewer people are dying. I subscribe to the theory that 1 is 1 too many. So I'm glad to see that our population has made progress, and it looks like vaccinations have really helped significantly. But I continue to be puzzled by the fact that there are so many cases of the virus here in our community. Here we are a year later. And so I'm wondering, do we have any idea why there continue to be so many cases and such spread of the virus in our community? What are we as people just not doing that we should be doing? Are we letting our guard down, or what? Do you experts have any advice for us?
Sure. Chair Harrington, thank you for the question. A couple things. One is I think that all of us need to remember the pandemic is not over. And if you're not fully vaccinated, we still need to be really careful and make sure that we're wearing our mask when we're around other people, especially if we're indoors. We need to make sure that we're maintaining that physical distance and the good hand hygiene. So we need to continue to use those recommendations. Number 1, best protection is get vaccine. It's safe and it's effective, and any vaccine is a good vaccine. So that is absolutely number 1. The other thing that one thing is just to know that the numbers are going down. We are seeing a decline in the state, and we're seeing a decline in Washington County. So our case rate and our numbers are going down. But there is still some spread also because we're seeing more variants in the state. And many of those variants are more contagious than the primary first variant of the coronavirus that we saw in the state and in this community. So the variant spread is also contributing to not decreasing the numbers quicker if we didn't have those variants. But again, vaccines are effective, including against these variants. So get your shot.
Well, thank you again for reminding me of the science. I really appreciate it. And you and your team continue to be the rock stars that we want and need. So thank you.
It's a great team, and we couldn't do this without our community-based partners, community-based organizations, and our federally qualified health systems and the hospitals and health systems. It is truly takes a village approach. Thank you.
So if I may, Chair and Board, just add a little bit financial context to the equity plan that was submitted. Washington County will receive, I believe it's just over $3 million that will help us achieve our equity plan goals, which is great. So this ties to my previous ARPA comments that we're going to start to see threads of funding coming in as there becomes greater clarity around what the distribution looks like to localities from the state, and also additional funds potentially from the federal government in time. Chair?
And related to all of this, I don't know if we all realize it, but the prior AOC Friday weekly meeting changed its scheduling, but this Friday there's a special one on vaccinations and the latest transitions, so messaging and best practices. So it might be a good one to tune into.
And I do also want to comment, just Marnie had brought up workforce and masks. On Friday, I sent communications out to the organization relative to continuing of masking, as well as that was posted on Horizons. From a qualitative data point, I have received a few emails from employees across the organization with appreciation because they're not fully vaccinated yet. So while I shared originally that I'm celebrating because I have my second shot, we do need to be thoughtful that our entire workforce and our community who has desired to get a shot is still in the progress of getting that shot. And they want to ensure that they are fully vaccinated and are able to report to work safely. And that concludes my report.
Alan.
All right, well, thank you. Working on transition planning with my office, we have those departures and we're hiring new people, and working with department heads on that transition planning, and also bringing Tom Carr into those discussions. He's been willing to talk with us and meet with us on that, so that should help. So anyway, that's on my report. And
can you remind me how many of those recruitments you and your team are working on?
We're working on the replacement for Chris Gilmore and 2 new positions, and and then we have 2 retirements that we'll also be working on too. So,
well, thank you for following up on that. Really appreciate it.
That's it.
Diane, Clean Water Services.
Good morning, Chair Harrington, and to our board of directors. Just a couple of Clean Water Services updates. The first one is that the Durham team is very excited to report to the board that they have accomplished a goal they've been working on for 5 years. They've achieved the platinum status of 100% compliance for 5 years. And this is quite an accomplishment because our treatment operations is quite complex to meet the needs of the Tualatin River. So they're just so excited about it. The second thing is the challenge of the pandemic for Clean Water Services, as we talked to the budget committee, is that we have to find $62 million in savings over the next 10 years to stay on track. So in our third quarter budget to actual, our revenue and expenditures within the pandemic, it's as we forecasted, and the team is continuing to do well in managing our resources, our capital investments, and our operational and maintenance expenses. The team is working on to refinance our bonds, and this is an opportunity for a $5 million in savings. So we really are trying to keep track on our ability to find savings. On the next note, it's been a very dry spring with very low river and tributary flows. So we have begun releasing flow from Clean Water Services storage reserves in Hag Lake on May 3rd, so we can continue to protect water quality, maintain flow, and also protect fish habitat. And this is the earliest date on record, with a continuing 10-year trend of releasing water earlier and longer into the fall. In Hag Lake, and want to manage it throughout the spring and summer, but we'll keep you posted on that. We are currently managing one new positive case of COVID and several exposure cases in the workforce. And I really want to do a shout out to our HR team. They're just doing a phenomenal job in supporting folks here at Clean Water Services and as well as their families as part of this response. So the team is continuing to stay vigilant and to manage the situation, but they are excited. Some folks are starting to take some vacations and just to be able to work through the pandemic and with their families. So thank you.
Diane, I have a question on the water release. I remember within my first few years of living here in the early 90s, we had quite a drought, and there were water restrictions for watering lawns and things like that. At what point do all the jurisdictions work together on supplies to ask folks to reduce their usage?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I don't believe the drinking water suppliers are at that point yet, but we're really watching what's going on. We always hope for more rainfall to replenish our reservoir, but we're all very attuned to it right now. I don't think we're there yet, like we were back in the 90s. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think just the fact that we had the wildfires in late August and September has me thinking early about water supplies and water releases for Clean Water Services. So thank you very much. Any questions for any members of our leadership team? Right into our next topic then. Kevin, if you could make sure we have our speakers for the Enhanced Sheriff Patrol District Renewal and Levy discussion. Welcome back, Erin.
Good morning, Chair Harrington and Board of Commissioners. I'm Erin Calvert with the County Administrative Office, and today I'm joined by Sheriff Pat Garrett and his team. And together we'll be providing a presentation and first discussion on the Enhanced Sheriff Patrol District, or ESPD, and the district renewal and the potential levy discussion. And there may be a little bit of information overlap from last night's ESPD budget presentation as well. Next slide, please. So we have the next 45 minutes scheduled together, and our agenda will provide some history on the formation of the district and a little bit about process or steps for continuation of the district and what is needed should the board wish to move in that direction. And then I'll hand it over to Sheriff Garrett and his team for an ESPD service presentation. And then we'll come back together to work through some policy questions, discussions, and next step direction. Next slide. So the Enhanced Sheriff Patrol District was formed by the Board of County Commissioners and approved by voters in 1987. And per the resolution and order that forms the district, the Board of County Commissioners also serves as the district's board of directors. The Sheriff's Office will talk a bit more about the purpose of the district in the following slides. Per the statute, the district can be formed for a period of 10 years at a time and is subject to a regular sunset review process. It requires an explicit order from the Board of County Commissioners to continue the district by adopting findings in specific areas. The board has continued the renewals of the district in 1993, 2003, and 2013. And past practice has started that process well before the district expires. And in fact, the sunset review, the public hearing, and the adoption process took place in 2001 and was made effective in 2003. And then the board went through the same process and findings again in 2012 to make that effective in 2013. And so it's not surprising that we're having this conversation in 2021, noting that the current district expires on June 30th of 2023, and the ESPD local option levy expires on that same date. So the last point on the slide is just noting that the statute does require that if the board wants to continue the district as a legal entity, then it is required to adopt the order and findings no later than 45 days. The deadline would be August 14th of 2022. And I'm just providing that legal context. Obviously, it's later than the timeline I just spoke of up above. So next, I'll turn the presentation over to Sheriff Garrett and his team. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Erin. Good morning, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. I will try my best to strike the right balance between providing helpful information and also not diving quite as deep, since some of the information, as Erin referenced, we covered last night. Slide, please. And this is some of the information that we covered last night. Erin laid out the history. It's worth being very clear that certainly in 1987, the Board of Commissioners created the district. This is entirely the Board of Commissioners' decision, and we just appreciate the opportunity to share some thoughts that are hopefully helpful to you when making your decision going forward. Slide, please. Again, this is something that we saw last night. The district identified in dark here, labeled ESPD, and at least a little bit of a slice in every commissioner district in the county. Slide, please. What I would add, in addition to what we discussed last night, is the ESPD residents comprise about 38% of total county residents, a sizable community requiring a sizable effort to address their public safety needs. Slide, please. And then again, just walking through what ESPD services provide, a really nice summary here. In addition, as I did mention last night, given that the district is rather sizable and we're fortunate enough to be staffed at that 1 officer per 1,000 level to provide services in the district, there are some economies of scale which allow us to move services and resources to address particular public safety needs, whether it's traditional criminal investigation to problem solving in a neighborhood that might not rise to be criminal conduct. Slide, please. I want to spend a bit of time here just to walk through the current ESPD positions that provide services in the district. 130 certified staff, 21.6 non-certified staff. That's the non-uniformed list below. So what do these positions do? Deputies respond to 911 calls. We empower deputies to conduct their own criminal investigations. They frequently, or they take the majority of their own criminal reports and they follow that up with their own investigations. That's one reason why follow-up reports as a proportion of initial criminal reports are pretty high, because they're working their own cases. They problem solve across a range of needs and challenges facing community members. They help connect people to services, help people in crisis, use self-initiation to provide community safety like DUI enforcement to get folks off our roads who are intoxicated. Corporals, while they also respond to 911 calls, their focus is criminal investigations. They work cases that are longer term in nature. They have the ability to travel across the county. They're not tied specifically to a district in almost every case. And they can leave the county almost like a detective can if they need to work a criminal investigation. They perform interim officer in charge duties when the sergeant is tied up. They coach and mentor newer deputies. Sergeants are our first line supervisors. They may also lead specialized teams like our crisis negotiators or be a program manager for teams like our search and rescue program. Lieutenants are mid-level leaders with regional responsibility. to address more challenging problems, help with community outreach, do strategic planning related to public safety issues and concerns like dangerous intersections or a rash of motor vehicle thefts. They help bring our detectives and our deputies and program educators together to focus to solve a larger problem. Record specialists, they handle phone and in-person contact here at the office, also at our East Precinct. They process reports and make distribution. They do law enforcement data system entry into the state and national data systems for runaways, warrants, restraining orders. They do cashiering duties, and they also respond to some low-level dispatch calls that come in through our mobile display terminals, just like the terminal you see in a deputy's police patrol car. Records supervisor is that first-line supervisor and expertise in different records areas. General services aide, that person serves as to perform quartermaster duties. So they shuttle cars to get serviced. They manage, track, and maintain radios and other equipment that deputies use in the district. Information systems analyst 2, that person provides support for systems like our mobile display terminals that deputies use in the district and other IT systems. Senior program educator and the program educator, they are really focused on community engagement. They were key to bring our business owners together at the little mall there at 185 and 8 after the trespass issue arose last summer, or spring, which we have been working with those business owners on to get a trespass agreement in place. It might already be in place. I should find out for you. Our senior program educator is bilingual, bicultural, and her focus is with our Latino community. Slide, please. Our district services, I really believe our focus is that we're meeting the needs of an evolving community. When I started here over 30 years ago, this county has changed, as everyone on the commission knows, so far. We have come so far since 1988. And our organization has also come a long way. From a training standpoint, strong training, that's super important to us, emphasizing the contemporary needs of our community and the contemporary requirements of training. The frequency we're able to train is up, thankful to our Public Safety Training Center. Trainers attend national best practice seminars and symposiums to make sure that they're on track and they're current. And training includes a commitment to partnerships because we work with our interagency partners on a daily basis. Community engagement, we covered a lot of this last night. Central to our ESPD district and services in the district is our advisory committee. We know that advisory committee has been meeting and active since the early 90s, and they continue to be a community lens and give us good advice about serving community residents. Professionalism, certainly our commitment to accreditation, both on the law enforcement side and forensics, gives us a shot in the arm when it comes to professionalism. And we are a learning organization. When we make mistakes, we admit mistakes, we learn from mistakes. It's really the central part of continuing to improve going forward, especially in this current environment. Reform-minded best practices, that's just something that we are continuing to focus on and talk about here in our organization. For the last 10 years, we have led reimagining really how we work with and serve folks in our community with mental illness through our mental health response team. Our undersheriff and chief deputy have briefed several city councils who are interested in that approach. And we've been able to, we're in the process of expanding those services so that more community members can be served in a way that lines up with that dual response model. As legal requirements and community standards change, again, so does our training so that we can keep up. Interagency partnerships, just a recent example of how those are important to us and how they benefit our community. Our crisis negotiations team just recently took first place in a Western States hostage negotiators competition, which included 7 Western states plus the British Columbia Canada agency. So we're certainly happy with those results. Slide, please. And then I would just offer to answer any questions. And again, thank you for allowing us to share some thoughts today.
Thank you, Sheriff Garrett. Can we advance to the next slide? So as Sheriff Garrett mentioned, this next slide really is just for discussion purposes, next steps, a chance to answer any questions that you might have. I'm realizing that I put a lot of questions up on this slide. It really wasn't to inundate you with them. It was to take a step back and just have more board discussion and receive some direction on the process of exploring a renewal replacement of the ESPD local option levy and district renewal and the direction the board would like to go. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Erin and Sheriff Garrett. Really appreciate it. I just have a couple of questions, if I might. Could you go back to slide 9? Thank you. Thank you for listing out the current personnel for ESPD. It was really useful to see this both last night and then today to better understand, the number of people who are needed to support the deputy ranks that are out in the field and records. I just want to make sure that I understand that and that our community members have a chance to hear. Beyond personnel, and last night in your charts, you did a really nice job of letting us know what aspect was personnel. There is all of the equipment that all the staff members need, cars, everything they wear on their bodies, in the cars, uniforms. So all of that is covered by the ESPD financial arrangement, correct?
That's correct. Yes, Chair. The cost to train and put a deputy in the field is covered by levy funds.
Yep. As well as for the facilities costs that are needed as well. You've got different patrol stations like up in the Bethany area. Yeah, the different precinct locations. That's the word I was looking for.
Yes, Chair. That's absolutely part of the intergovernmental overhead cost charged to the district. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So if we go back to slide 12, the policy questions for consideration. One of the things that I'm looking for out of future information is on the cost coverage, because we know that as of 2010, the Metro Council changed the regional approach to UGB expansion. So now there won't, all of the future UGB expansions as of 2015, 2018, and so forth are going to be handled by the cities. And so what I'm going to be interested in is there are estimates about population growth, and it would be really helpful helpful to me at least, as we move forward in future rate conversations, to see what percentage of that population would be captured inside the existing ESPD boundaries. Because what I'm thinking about is the situation that we're faced with now, where the cost of salaries, benefits such as healthcare and retirement exceeds revenue. So, we've got COLA and future land use transition plans. So I don't know the answers to these questions, but what I want to make sure is that as we go through looking at rate setting, which I know is a different question than are you willing to extend the service district for another 10 years? But I figured now would be an opportune time to let you know what information would help me. So um,
That's really helpful, Chair Harrington. And also, one thing we're not talking about or going in depth is the projected costs. So the things you're talking about, we're working with the finance team to get those into the projection so we can have more conversation about that. And you know how these things go, you're projecting out. And so the current ESPD levy was projected so long ago, and you learn more, you do better with more information. So we're trying to incorporate that into the next projections as well. And we'll come back to the board with that for sure.
Yeah. So the one question I wasn't able to ask is, or answer rather, I agree with the role that ESPD plays in our community. So, I support the continuation of ESPD. The nuance, or not nuance, but what's underneath that is the timing. As you've let us know clearly here, we need to make sure we make that decision to extend the district by August. But so there's the extending the district, but then there's also the levy. So it seems to me, but we haven't had a chance to talk about this as the board, that it's far easier to go to the voters for a replacement or a renewal if we know the district is going to exist for another 10 years. So that's where I'm answering my own question about why now, right? Why should we go down this path now? So I'm very comfortable with us going down this path, but I wanted to open it up to the board to say, does this make sense to you now? And look at these questions before us now. Go ahead, Commissioner Willie.
Oops, hit the wrong button. Well, yeah, I'm a big fan of this. I mean, I just look at what this district does to enable public safety to certainly our unincorporated areas, and I think this was great visioning way back in 1987. The thing that and follow up on one of your questions, Chair, was body cams. We have approved putting body cams on all our deputies, and I'm assuming that additional cost is included in this levy. And to me, that's just one more reason why looking out to make sure that we are anticipating future needs and certainly future costs that we're going to need to take into consideration when we're providing this level of service. As I asked last night, I asked the sheriff about the one officer per 1,000. Is that adequate? If I remember correctly, and compared to our cities, it's about 1.4 or 1.5. I don't know that we need to get there in this particular patrol district, but again, it's just something as our population grows and becomes more dense, and provided we don't have any annexations into cities of those areas, it's going to, I think our costs and our demand for services is going to increase. And again, staying with that, boundary lines, as was pointed out last night, District 4 has just a little small slice of this patrol district, so that's good. And as long as I guess there's no anticipation that those boundary lines would change in any form or fashion. Yeah, that at least makes our district and our defines our process and our needs that we have. And then lastly, the levy rate. When was the last time that the levy rate is, again, looking at the budget document, 68 cents per thousand of assessed value? When was the last time that was modified in this process? Not that I'd advocate that we do that, but certainly just wondering what the history of that was. So lots of information there. Sorry.
Chair Harrington, Commissioner Willie, thank you for the question. I have a strong recollection that believe it was 2012, maybe 2013, we increased the rate by 5 cents.
10 years.
To answer Commissioner Willie, your question on body worn cameras, that cost is factored in currently and projected out.
So I'm ready to proceed. Commissioner Treese indicated thumbs up. Oh, she's off mute now. Go ahead, Commissioner Treese.
I am thumbs up about this. The question that I want us to have in mind as we move forward is what input do we need from the public, and where how do we position this to make sure that our voters understand what they're voting for, and especially in light of the defund police viewpoint of many. So I think we need to be really careful about our communication with this as well. But I'm very much in support. We need to do this, and I am certainly willing to spend my time and energy to get this done.
I agree with you on committee input, community input. I think it might be great to start with an open community call, a town hall on ESPD, and maybe, oh, I forgot to checkpoint today on our topic for our June town hall. My mistake. I'll have to come back to that this afternoon because we need to focus in on that. Maybe that's where we just start some community discussion about public safety in our urban unincorporated areas. And I remember when we were going through the listening sessions with our body worn cameras, there is an overwhelming community level of support for public safety, as we saw at the ballot just last May, 1 year ago. When I asked via the chat in the listening session about two different folks about public safety support, they were very thumbs up. So we need to continue the discussion and progress on the mental health needs, absolutely, but we can't put all of that on our deputies. So glad you raised the point. Commissioner Fye, how about you?
I think it's really good to have community input. I know a lot of community are interested in reimagining what public safety looks like and how public safety should serve them. And I think it also might be interesting for the community to hear, Sheriff, how, the next levy and that funding, how are you going to deploy that in the community in a way that serves them and reflects the deputies that are going to be servicing that community, how that is going to reflect them, whatever, the social well-being that exists in that community, like any, the socioeconomic or diversity or any of that. I think it might be good to share some lessons learned and how we're going to improve some of those lessons and how we're going to do different the next time we implement. Obviously, I live in unincorporated area of Washington County, so I do support our having robust public safety that really has the right response at the right time. What that looks like, I think it's going to take a long conversation and a really difficult and courageous conversation to get to that. So I do support what Commissioner Tree said, and I think it's important we go back to the community. And then I also would like to see some, what are some of the lessons that we learned from previous deployment of those funding, and then what are we going to do different? How we're going to reimagine public safety differently?
Well, and I think part of reimagining public safety isn't on the sheriff and the sheriff's department, but on us as a county government and looking at how we are responding to societal needs, right? Mental health needs, issues of poverty in our community. So unfortunately, whether you're in an ESPD district or in a city, we have done a lot of societal cost shifting, and we've left our field deputies are the responders of last resort, if I might say that, Sheriff Garrett, though I'm sure you put it far more eloquently than I do. And we have to recognize that we need to go further up the response chain and try and make sure that we're providing different means. So I feel like I'm being a little ineloquent there, Sheriff Garrett. How might you put it? How would you recommend that we, the Board of Commissioners, proceed with further community engagement?
Chair Harrington, commissioners, I think that anytime we can get community feedback is a win for us. We always learn when we are able to do that. Chair Harrington, I think you spoke right. Policing has been a bit of the government service of last resort. I think it's about partnerships. That's where we are the strongest and most effective, is when we partner, whether that's with community-based organizations or our interagency partners. The more we can work together to solve problems rather than being siloed, the more effective we are, and the more responsive we are to community needs. So thank you for those great ideas, Commissioner Fye, and the rest of the commissioners. I think definitely tapping into the community is a great way to start.
We might have to consider some community focus groups. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think, Chair Harrington, this is what I wanted to say, and I appreciate you saying that, Sheriff Pat Garrett. I think we all have to. I don't think it's just on our responsibility. I also do think it's the sheriff's office to, and I think it's all of our responsibility to work. So I appreciate you saying that, Sheriff.
Have you heard from, or have you asked the Sheriff's Office Latino Advisory Committee how they might recommend we proceed with some community engagement?
I love that idea. They are very much leaning forward. We have had some really incredible discussions. They have been difficult at times, and which is where we need to be. We're happy to engage them. We just met yesterday. The co-chairs met to chart our agenda for next month's meeting, and we can absolutely include this. I can work with Aaron and include this. Just offer their help. I think they would love the opportunity to step up in that way.
That was actually my question as well, Chair. And the other part of the question was going to be, can they work with Latricia's team to help develop some focus groups for us?
Yeah, I think we're really going to have to chart out a plan for engagement in the second half of this year. September through November, really 3 or 4 months of an intensive set of meetings with different groups in order to cover the geography that was listed on slide 6, to make sure that we've engaged with folks both from different segments of our population, but also different age groups, ethnicities, cultures, but also geographically as well, given the size of the district. Cool, great. All right, that sounds like another work plan we have to put together. So if you, related to this, if you would all put your thinking caps on for our June 28th, Monday, June 28th Town Hall, and this afternoon when we reconvene at 1 o'clock. Remember, we have a memo from Elizabeth that I resent, I think, for our commissioner meeting, our work session meeting last Tuesday, so that we can zero in on what sort of topic, if any, we want to use for that town hall. So staff can help pull together information for us for a fruitful town hall. Any other questions or comments for staff from commissioners? So Aaron and Sheriff Garrett and Ms. Angie, I think you heard a lot of support from commissioners for proceeding to extend the time frame for the district and the ordinance, and the findings that is necessary by August. But in addition, we also want to get going on advancing our engagement with the community on the Enhanced Sheriff Patrol District and the aspects, oh, hello, Kitty, the aspects of support to the community. Does that give you what you need for today?
That does give us what we need. We'll kind of do this parallel planning track, and the only kind of leftover question in terms of building a timeline, and it may be one that we can't answer today, but in terms of building the timeline, looking at whether the board is interested in pursuing a May of 2022 election or a November of 2022, that may need a lot more discussion and thinking, but that will help us build out our timeline and plan for you.
Ms. Angie?
Yeah, Chair, I was just going to mention that as part of the follow-up, we will come back with an engagement plan so the board can give guidance and further input on that plan and what that looks like.
And related to that, just a year ago, we had the replacement of the public safety levy, the re-election of Sheriff Garrett, all very positive numbers. And then we had really an awakening throughout our nation built on some just horrific events earlier in the year. And so it might be useful for us as an agency to do some just general polling about what is on people's minds, what are their key issues, and also with a couple of probing questions about what public safety means to them today and looking out over the next 5+ years, so that we can really get a marker for ourselves about what folks in general, right, might be interested. We'll get great feedback through the focus group, certainly, but getting that general population, both Washington County wide, but also for ESPD as well. And I know that's no simple task, what I just described.
Great suggestion. Thank you.
All righty. Well, I think that's it for this morning.
Madam Chair, if I may, we couple of the agenda updates for the board meeting and then turn it over to you to see if the commissioners had any questions on the agenda for this morning.
Oh, yes, that's right. Thank you. I forgot to check in on the agenda. Wow, it's an impressively large packet for today's meeting, I will say. We have, I forgot to add them up. We have quite a few items on the consent agenda. We had a bid award memo added to item 12 and had an additional item 17 that was added based upon the work that we engaged on last week. We have a presentation from the auditor one item on boards and commissions, a public hearing. We do have one action item on the Sherwood Urban Renewal District. Do any commissioners have any questions with regard to today's business meeting? Nope. Okay, looks like we're clear on that, Kevin. Did that sync up on any matters that you were wondering about?
Nope, that is what we needed to do.
Yes, thank you for catching my mistake. I appreciate that. All righty, well then, we have a few minutes, not quite 20 minutes before we reconvene in our business meeting. Okay. All righty. Well, we'll see one another back in work session at 1 p.m. Thank you, colleagues. See you in a bit.